Here in bear country, I hear it all too often. Someone gets a rooftop tent and goes, well, I feel a lot more protected. But honestly, that is not going to protect you from a 10-foot tall grizzly bear. But as someone that has spent over 10 years camping in this beautiful Alberta and British Columbia wilderness, today I'm going to tell you what exactly will protect you from the grizzly bears. And it all starts here, packing up even before you get on the trail. It's all about preparation and make sure you have the right gear and, well, the right mindset before you go and head out into the wilderness. And speaking of mindset, one thing we do want to keep in mind when we are talking about going into bear country is we are exploring, well, honestly, their homes, right? So we want to be mindful and respectful of that when we're heading out there. And with that said, it's important to understand why bear encounters happen in the first place. And most of the time, it is because someone was, well, honestly, a little bit careless. Bears navigate areas mostly by sense. So if you're going ahead and you're bringing something with a lot of smell, then obviously the bears are going to be attracted to it. This also will depend on what season it is, whether they're protecting their young, like in the spring, or they're getting ready to hibernate in the winter and gathering as much food as they can for the chilly winters ahead. A lot of time, the bear encounters are just simply a misunderstanding between, well, the person that's exploring the area and the animals themselves. So with that said, your rooftop tent, whether it is a hard-shelled one like mine, or it does have a soft shell, it's really irrelevant. Here in Canada, specifically Parks Canada, where we have a lot of our national parks, they do reference the rooftop tents as a soft-shelled tent. So you have to camp in a soft-shelled area. And well, when we're in the wilderness, we don't have those restrictions like that. But we do have to be mindful of, well, our tents aren't really going to hold any sense in. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when we get out there and start talking about rooftop tents. But it's always important to keep in mind. That said, there isn't a lot of gear that you do need to bring when you're going into bear country. If you're backpacking, a lot of times you will have a bear canister, but I'll talk about this a little bit later. And on our car camping adventures, our bear canister maybe looks a little bit different. But one thing I always like to mention is make sure you have a sealed cooler and optimally another way to seal food inside of that, whether it's containers or bags or something like that, because having more layers of, well, sealedness will help that scent not spread as far and will hopefully not attract as many animals. The other thing that you're always going to want to bring in bear country is bear spray. And I know I'm going to get a lot of comments on this because some people disagree with me, but bear spray has been proven to be pretty effective, and it is something that you always, personally, I always want to make sure I have in bear country. That said, you do want to make sure that it is not expired. Mine has expired a little bit, so I will be updating this for this season. But as I said, you always want to make sure you have this relatively close reach. You don't want to be running for it if you do want to have it ready, right? And there is a lot of great videos. Not going to show you too much about it in this video, but going into the details of how bear spray works, because a lot of people think this is a lot more, well, it has a lot more distance and it has a lot more spray. It's only got about 15 seconds and you only got about 15 feet. So that is always important to keep in mind if you ever have to deploy it. In the first place, we actually want to avoid using this altogether and avoid bear counters as much as we can. That's all we really need to bring. Now, there's a couple things that you don't want to bring. So from my experience, stuff like bear bells aren't that important. You have a higher chance of actually spooking a bear if you're running around with a bear bell, just because they're not the most effective and they provide more of a mechanical sound. It's the same thing as, well, a speaker. They're not going to be as effective as alerting a bear to your whereabouts than just speaking. Which brings up a good point. If you're going into bear country and you want to have someone to talk to. I talk to you guys all the time, which is definitely a good thing on my solo adventures, but bring someone along and then you can go ahead and talk to them, and that will alert the animals in the area that you're around, right? It's better to be a little bit louder and have the animals know where you are than them to walk through your campsite and then you spook them when all of a sudden you are saying something. So leave the bear bells behind and maybe bring a friend when you're heading off into bear country. Now that you're out in the wilderness, there's a few things to think about when selecting a campsite. There's going to be the obvious ones, just when you're camping in general, like making sure it's flat, making sure it's not going to be a river if it starts raining, making sure you're not in the middle of the trail, stuff like that. But specifically for bear safety, there's a couple different things. First, look for fresh tracks. Is there any fresh tracks? If there's a big paw like that and it looks like it's a couple days old, maybe you want to select a different spot. Also, look out for a fresh kill or a carcass on the ground. Obviously, animals are going to be attracted to that. And if you're camping there, there's a chance something's going to be coming for that and they're just going to run into you. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to avoid those unexpected encounters, right? And then finally, see if there is any scat on the ground. See if there's any animal waste. If there is that, then obviously they've been here recently. Also, do a quick scan for any animals in the area when you're selecting your spot. That'll also be a good indication that maybe it's not the best place to go ahead and camp. And then also in the spring and summer, do a quick glance for berries like strawberries or raspberries, wild berries, because obviously as we get close to the fall, the bears are going to be getting ready for hibernation and they're going to be looking out for those things. So if you camp in the middle of a berry bush in fall, the chances are you're going to get a bear encounter. So again, use these ideas or these thoughts to just go ahead and give your campsite a quick glance, because the amount of people that just say, I'm going to camp right out here without taking a quick glance and looking at their surroundings is way too many. And that is the first step in, well, creating a bear safe protocol so you don't run into one. And while site selection is important, we're now going to be talking about the most critical takeaway. And it really depends on, honestly, you. I'm not going to pretend like we're not going to have to eat food. And to be honest, well, when you're backpacking, there is a different set of protocols, and you could adopt it into your car camping adventures. But honestly, I don't see a lot of people doing it for a couple reasons. You're not going to be able to, well, move all your cooking stuff 100 meters away from your campsite every night. Especially as we car camp, we have a lot bigger stuff. Backpacking, we have our little bear box. We go ahead, we take our little camp stove, we go walk, we cook, we move and come back here. We leave all our stuff with scents over there. With cars, it's a little bit different. One practice you can do if you're really worried is you can go ahead, cook your food somewhere, and then go ahead, drive 100 meters up the trail or whatever, and then set up camp. The chances, though, of you not bringing a scent with you in your car, pretty unlikely, right? So we're going to have a couple different protocols for car camping. And I'm going to say this right away so that you do not forget, and you will hear me say it quite a bit. Keep everything, and I'm talking everything with a scent inside your car, preferably in something else like your cooler, so you have a double layer of protection preventing any scents from escaping. That includes and primarily talks about food. So when we're cooking food out here, we want to be extra careful, right? Food is going to be the reason why animals are going to be coming to your site, particularly bears in bear country. And how do we do that? Well, there's a couple different steps. As I said, make sure you have a cooler. Second of all, make sure you're not leaving stuff around your campsite. This just goes and follows the leave no trace protocol that we want to always respect when we're out in the wilderness. But it also just makes sure that anything you leave around with scents or whatever isn't going to be attracting animals, right? If we're leaving food or waste, or even like cans and bottles, you can have animals come up because they hear them. So that's why I said everything with a scent in here. I always make sure, and you see it a little more down south, is you will have your garbage on a spare tire. I never do that, especially out here in bear country. I will put my garbage in a plastic sealed bag inside my cooler. And if I really don't have space, it will go inside of my car, but it's always in something sealed inside of the car. And that's what we should be doing for everything, whether it's food, waste, or anything like that. And then for stuff like your water, your gray water, that is easy enough to go ahead and do that 100-meter walk and dump your gray water somewhere other than your camp. You want to keep your camp spotless, as I said, because those scents are going to be attracting the animals. And then finally, after we're done cooking, and I said putting all of our trash away, including empty bottles, cans, and waste, inside of our cooler or a sealed container inside of our car, we're going to go ahead and we'll head up to bed. When you head up to bed, again, no scents. We want to make sure that we're leaving anything with a smell down in the car. This includes stuff like you wouldn't typically think about, like sunscreen, toothpaste, as well as stuff like even flavored water. I only have plain water up in my car. And when you're heading to bed, as I said, there's a couple important things to remember. First and foremost, do not take your cooler out. I've seen it way too many times where people are putting their coolers outside of their car. Again, the more amount of sealed space you can have between a scent and the outdoors is a great way. We're not going to also pretend that these cars are bulletproof, right? We've seen all the videos with the bears getting in it. But the thing is, it is another way to seal the container and will prevent the scents from escaping and hopefully attracting animals at the end of the day. And then you can climb in your false sense of security, also known as a rooftop tent. Even after all these years, I do feel more comfortable in a rooftop tent than on my ground tent. Maybe because it's a little bit bigger, maybe because it's on top of my car. But as I said, it's not a safety measure, it is more of a comfort thing. With that said, there's a couple other things I do want to mention while you're in a rooftop tent. As I mentioned, always have that bear spray on you, whether it's in your tent or while you're walking around. It's a critical item to have. I typically always leave it in one spot in my rooftop tent on the pockets so I can go ahead and reach it if I ever need it. On top of that, I also have stuff like my headlights, so I can go ahead and do a quick glance if I need to, or my car keys. Remote alarms are also another deterrent. Again, it might be more of a comfort thing, but when you hit that alarm, it definitely lets everything know around you that you're here. And honestly, if a wild animal is going by the campsite, typically they tend to avoid human interactions, so they'll avoid your car going off in the middle of the forest. And then finally, one thing I do want to mention is when you're camping out in the wilderness, especially the first couple times as I have back in the day, you are going to hear noises. The thing with those noises is there's so many things that it can be that typically don't worry about every single noise. You will know if there is a bear or something else walking around your campsite because you will be able to hear it. But little scutters and stuff like that are often squirrels or other small animals that are sneaking through the campsite and nothing to be worried about. It does take time to get used to being able to camp out in the wilderness and not wake up at every noise, but use that to calm your mind and, well, enjoy the beautiful place you are. And then after a restful and peaceful night out in the forest, you hopefully wake up to, well, a beautiful morning. All because you follow the Bear Safe protocol, ensuring no scents were outside during the night and selected an appropriate campsite. Let me know down below if you are familiar with camping in bear territory and what do you typically do to make sure you're safe out here. And if you haven't yet, let me know down below if this helped ease your mind a little bit or you're still worried and have some questions for me. And while you're down there, don't forget to go ahead and check out the channel memberships for exclusive perks and behind the scenes content, as well as Flat for Off-Road for getting your Subaru, well, adventure ready to tackle amazing camping trips like this. And well, I'll be seeing you guys on the next adventure.